Kenya enjoys favorable trade relations with its neighbors within the East African community, with the trade balance between Kenya and Tanzania, as well as with Uganda, being positive. A case in point, as at 2024, is that the value of Kenya exports to Uganda were valued at Kenya shillings 125 billion, while imports to Uganda were valued at 36 billion Kenya shillings. While for the Tanzania, as at 2024, the value of Kenya exports to Tanzania stood at 65 billion Kenya shillings and imports at 57 billion Kenya shillings. The trend of trade with the East African community over the last 5 years indicates continued export growth and a growing trade surplus in favor of Kenya. In 2024, total exports to the East African community was estimated at 321.4 billion Kenya shillings, a 103% increase from 158.3 billion worth of exports recorded in 2020. During that period, the trade surplus has widened from 102.1 billion in 2020 to 217.6 billion in 2024, an increase of 113%. As appreciated above, Kenya and Uganda continue to enjoy cordial and steadfast relations. Uganda is Kenya's largest export destination, accounting for 11.3% of total exports in 2024. The two countries will hold the 14th session of the Joint Border Commission and the second Joint Technical Commission later this month in Kampala and Mbale. On the now resolved missing Kenyan activists in Uganda, I would like to inform the country that the ministry closely monitored the case of the two missing Kenyans, Mr. Bob Njagi and Mr. Nicholas Oyo, who disappeared on 1st October 2025. High-level diplomatic engagements between Kenya and Uganda eventually led to the release on Friday. They have since been reunited with their families. When I say high level, I mean really high level. President Ruto was engaging with his counterpart on this matter. Kenya-Tanzania relations. Following Tanzania's general election on 29th October 2025, tensions arose due to the perception of foreign interference by non-state actors from Kenya and other countries, presumably. Kenya recognizes President Samia Suluhu Hassan's administration and remains committed to cooperation under the East African Community framework. Meanwhile, the Kenyan High Commission in Dar es Salaam continues to provide consular support, including visa amnesty requests and repatriation of affected citizens. I'd like to update Kenyans on the status of our citizens in Tanzania. The eight Kenyans arrested in different police stations across Tanzania have now been released. 3 Kenyans are still being held, 2 in Arusha and 1 in Dar es Salaam police stations. However, there are 2 unresolved cases. 1, a Kenyan by the name John Ogutu was shot dead on 29th October at around 7 p.m. in Goba Center, Ubungo District in Dar es Salaam. He was a teacher at Sky Schools High, Rabson. His body has not been traced to date. The list of those affected above are in a comprehensive statement which you will be able to see. Kenya Foreign Policy Mashinani Initiative. Last month, our ministry launched the Kenya Foreign Policy Mashinani Initiative in Kisumu County from 13th to 15th October 2025, bringing together representatives from all 6 Nyanza counties. This initiative, themed Kenya Foreign Policy Mashinani, Together Advancing Kenya's Interests in a Changing World, is aimed at deepening citizen awareness and engagement on Kenya's foreign policy priorities and their linkage to national development. Later, before the year ends, there is a similar engagement being planned for the coast counties. And I think we hope that they'll gain momentum. As you are aware, we have had situations where some of the policies at county level have caused a lot of distress, not just for investments there, but having an impact on our international obligations. So this idea of talking to them and highlighting this is crucial so that we are on the same page. The peace process in the DRC. Kenya has and will continue to play a constructive and impartial role and reiterates its full support for ongoing regional efforts to pacify Eastern DRC under the African Union mediators, as well as the ongoing international efforts in Doha and Washington. Kenya has consistently supported peace and stability in the Democratic Republic of Congo, notably through the Nairobi Peace Process, a comprehensive regional initiative launched under the auspices of the East African Community. More recently, President William Ruto, in his capacity as the chair of the EAC, has actively been involved in facilitating the joint EAC South African Development Community SADC initiative. Remember, it's now one merged process under the African Union. The situation in Sudan remains dire, and the country risks being fragmented. Kenya calls on both sides of the divide to an immediate and unconditional ceasefire and a return to the negotiating table, because only dialogue can resolve the conflict. Kenya also supports regional efforts led by the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, the IGAD, and the African Union, which recently appointed President Museveni as the mediator for the Sudan conflict, as well as international efforts by the Quad, comprising the United States of America, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and UAE, and the ongoing work by Ramtane Lamara, the United Nations Secretary General's personal envoy to Sudan. Kenya will continue to stand ready to contribute in any way towards the realization of peace in Sudan. People tend to forget that here in Nairobi, President Ruto had direct communication with both Burhan and Hemeti. He did not favor any side. But for some reason, there's always a deliberate effort to distort the facts. Kenya stands for one Sudan and a peaceful Sudan. The situation in South Sudan. Kenya remains seized of the situation in South Sudan and is exploring several options for jump-starting talks in the country with a view to achieving a sustainable peace. IGAD, the African Union, and the United Nations have warned of potential collapse of the revitalized agreement for resolution of conflict in South Sudan. Agreement, if corrective measures are not urgently taken. Implementation of this peace agreement remains slow, and political mistrust, security violations, and delayed unification of forces, dialogue mechanisms, including the Tumaini Initiative, remain frozen. Kenya expanded It's a diplomatic footprint with our new consulates in Guangzhou, China, and Jeddah in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which were operationalized on 1st August 2025 and November 3rd, 2025, respectively. Yesterday, the Cabinet chaired by His Excellency President William Ruto endorsed the establishment of an embassy of the Republic of Kenya to the Vatican City, home to the Holy See and the seat of the Roman Catholic Church, to strengthen diplomatic engagement with the Holy See and advance Kenya's global, moral, and development diplomacy. The move will boost cooperation with Catholic development agencies that run more than 7,700 schools and 500 health facilities in Kenya, supporting the bottom-up economic transformation agenda through expanded partnerships in education, healthcare, and social welfare. Kenya has a Catholic population of approximately 17 million citizens. Cabinet further approved the establishment of new embassies in Copenhagen, Denmark, and Hanoi in Vietnam. Kenya and Ethiopia continue to work together through enhanced cooperation and information sharing to address the anticipated cross-border threats in an effort to confront shared threats and maintain peace and stability in the region. On Somalia, Somalia continues to face persistent insecurity driven by Al-Shabaab's resilience, federal member state tensions, and limited physical support for the African Union Support and Stabilization Mission in Somalia, AWESOM. Emerging cooperation between Al-Shabaab and Yemen's Houthis continues to pose a widening transnational threat along the Red Sea corridor. The political friction between Mogadishu, Puntland, and Jubaland also continues to undermine stabilization efforts ahead of elections. Kenya will continue to play an active mediation role, engaging national leaders, federal member states, and clan elders to bridge political divides, build trust, and address underlying grievances. Haiti. On the issue of Haiti, Kenya takes pride in the stability efforts in the country. Through the spirit of international solidarity, the Kenya-led mission of 800 Kenyan officers continues to make progress that has resulted in the reopening of schools, health facilities in areas controlled by the mission. This is progress for the Haitian people, and we will continue to lend support as the mission transforms into a gang suppression force, GCF, with a UN-led mandate. The support to Haiti is part of Kenya's contribution to international peace and security positions, and positions Kenya as an exporter of peace. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya has been involved in over 43, almost 50 peacekeeping missions globally, whether in Africa, whether in parts of Europe and other areas, or in Asia. Kenya has been there. So the mission in Haiti was not an experiment. It's out of experience. And we now hope that as normality returns, we shall be able to assist or have contributed to the well-being of the people of Haiti. In recent months, Kenya has participated in several international fora, including the 9th Tokyo International Conference for African Development, TICAD 9 in Tokyo, Japan, and Kenya secured Kenya shillings 22 billion Samurai financing facility which will be channeled towards promotion of green industrialization and e-mobility. The Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, Kenya is set to receive 100% duty-free market access to China for all its export products. The zero tariff policy aims to boost Kenyan exports like coffee, tea, and avocados to China. We also had the second Africa Climate Summit in Ethiopia. We had the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA at 80, in New York, in the US. We also had the recent UN Second World Summit for Social Development in Doha, Qatar. This was after 30 years that this summit was being held. So the summit in Qatar was marking that wide gap. The ongoing climate summit of COP30 in Belém, Brazil is also on, and we are represented there. We also had the COMESA, the 24th COMESA Summit of Heads of State in Nairobi, hosted by His Excellency President William Ruto, and he's now the current chair. Each of these global events has come with several benefits to the country, including trade and investment, diaspora jobs, as well as positioning Kenya as a strategic partner in the global engagements. Since the start of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine in 2022, recruitment exercises in Russia have reportedly expanded to include African nationals, including Kenyans. And I'm sure you have also seen that quite a number of other countries have suffered the same fate. The ministry has continued to receive inquiries from families regarding relatives allegedly involved in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Reports suggest that over 200 Kenyans may have joined this adventure or misadventure, with some of them being former members of Kenya's disciplined services. It is estimated that recruitment networks are still active in both Kenya and Russia. The Kenyan embassy in Moscow has reported injuries among nationals and others stranded after attempting recruitment into the war efforts. As you may be aware, on 24th September this year, a multi-agency security team raid was conducted in Athi River, where 21 Kenyans were found housed, awaiting processing to the war zone. One agent was arrested for coordinating the processing of Kenyan recruits under the guise of overseas jobs. The agent is presently in court for luring unsuspecting Kenyans to fight in the war. Intelligence sources indicate that victims are reportedly signing contracts with unscrupulous agencies with promises of payment of up to $18,000 for visas, travel, and accommodation. It sounds very attractive. You can be lured. But that is where the catch is. Unfortunately, those who have been rescued have said they were misled about the nature of the work they were to do, including assembling drones, handling chemicals, and painting works without proper training or protective gear. These are worrying concerns for us, and we must be able to tell you to guard our brothers and sisters against being exploited. The crime of human trafficking for forced criminality has taken various forms, including online scamming, illegal cryptocurrency trade, forced labor, slavery, harvesting of human organs, money laundering, and sexual exploitation, among other crimes. These crimes, in addition to illegal drug production and trafficking, as well as trafficking in wildlife products, presents a serious threat to not only the national security of Kenya, but global security as well. According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, human trafficking has become one of the world's largest criminal enterprises, generating over $50 billion annually in profits for traffickers. The saddest thing is that it is spiraling out of control as more victims are trafficked from Africa to as far as South America and Europe. The victims are attracted to the fake job adverts that are purported to be in the Asian continent. How do these criminal networks work? They have been placing online adverts on Facebook, Instagram, Signal, X, YouTube, among others, advertising various job opportunities ranging from receptionists, sales jobs, cryptocurrency traders, cooks, drivers, public relations officers, translators, factory workers, among other manual jobs. Once Kenyan applicants apply for the job, they are quickly interviewed and offered the job. The victims have been swindled to travel on tourist visas, procure one-way tickets, and book for non-existent hotel reservations. Since July 2022, reports indicate that many young Kenyans have fallen victim. And you can see the platforms they use, so they know who their targets are. The situation is so dire that our missions are constantly rescuing citizens who manage to reach the missions in bad shape. There may be many out there waiting to be rescued. We appeal to Kenyans to undertake due diligence at all times. To mitigate this, the government further continues to encourage all Kenyans seeking employment opportunities abroad to do so through agencies that have been vetted by the Ministry of Labor, through the National Employment Agency, NEA, and of course, the Department of Diaspora. The National Employment Agency is tasked with regulating and accrediting recruitment agencies, as well as ensuring compliance with ethical recruitment standards, conducting pre-departure training, and safeguarding the welfare of workers and accountability in cases of abuse and repatriation. On the issue of repatriation, the government has to date rescued and repatriated over 500 victims since 2022. Further, the relevant government agencies have investigated and delisted close to 600 rogue foreign and also local job agency recruiters, 600. This is not enough, as discussions are ongoing for a proposal to publicly list these agencies that exploit the vulnerability of our people, basically to name and shame. In recent past, Kenya has engaged with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, ranked as the third largest global labor market for foreign workers, employing over 200,000 Kenyans. We are seeking an additional agreement for skilled and semi-skilled workers and this is pending approval from Saudi Arabia. Near similar engagement with the United Arab Emirates for mutual recognition of academic and professional qualifications is also ongoing. Kenya is also negotiating amendments to the 2012 bilateral labor agreement with the state of Qatar to streamline the recruitment following the recent recruitment of 3,000 Kenyans and an additional offering of 5,000 jobs, which includes 300 teachers, 300 nurses, 4,400 security personnel, and Qatar has definitely over 70,000 Kenyans working there. In the Kingdom of Jordan, there is potential for skilled employment opportunities, and negotiations are ongoing for a memorandum of understanding to open more job opportunities. Now, there is a challenge, and this is a challenge that we must speak to, and we will rely heavily on the support of the media so that we can deal with this menace. This is the issue of human trafficking. As we look at the positive side, there's also a negative, and that's the one we need to address. Though significant progress has been made in diaspora diplomacy, we are also cognizant of weaknesses that put our citizens in harm's way by virtue of unscrupulous foreign agents. The government has had successful and safe repatriation of Kenyans from conflict-affected and high-risk regions. Notably, approximately 400 Kenyans have been lured by unscrupulous agents with promise of lucrative job opportunities in the Far East, including in countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, and Myanmar, only to end up working in conditions akin to modern slavery. The human trafficking situation in Southeast Asia, particularly for Kenyans, has become a significant and alarming concern, largely driven by the rise of forced criminality in online scam compounds. It is a sophisticated menace where our citizens are often lured by fraudulent job advertisements and agents purportedly in places like Thailand, and are trafficked to Southeast Asia for exploitation, including forced labor, online scamming, illegal cryptocurrency trade, and even the horrific prospect of human organ harvesting. Since July 2022, the Kenya Embassy in Bangkok has rescued and facilitated the repatriation of approximately 500 Kenyan victims. As of now, 126 Kenyans are currently awaiting repatriation, 69 in Thailand and 57 in Myanmar, with additional groups being held by militia. Some of you may have come across a media story which highlights the case of a Kenyan arrested at a Thai airport for using a fake immigration stamp. Having been previously repatriated from a scam compound in March 2025, he illegally re-entered Thailand to work for a Chinese-owned scam company in Myanmar. After a crackdown, he was arrested while attempting to fly home. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a case that also shows that some of the victims are not innocent but are part of the criminal network. A major concern is that rescued individuals now trained in cybercrime pose a national risk by potentially establishing scam operations in Kenya upon their return. Recommendations that we make focus on a nationwide awareness campaign, strengthening legal frameworks, and enhancing victim support and integration. The Kenya mission in Bangkok, Thailand, which is accredited to these countries, has been instrumental in providing timely advisories and labor-related information to forestall cases in which Kenyans are held in exploitative working conditions. Recently, the ministry has also facilitated the successful repatriation of a Kenyan woman and her daughter from Qatar to Kenya after they found themselves in a distressful situation in the country. In the interest of privacy, we shall not disclose further than that. Equally, the ministry last month repatriated a toddler from Jakarta, Indonesia, whose Kenyan mother is facing a jail sentence, caught up in some illicit trade. She's facing a jail sentence, but the toddler arrived at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and was handed over to his grandmother and aunt. In Saudi Arabia, given the huge population of Kenyans working in the country, the problem of mothers with undocumented children is prevalent, and the government is pursuing bilateral interventions. And this has been a subject of several parliamentary questions, by the way, from members of parliament whose constituents have been affected in one way or the other. The government of Kenya, through a drive dubbed Mobile Consular Services, has conducted DNA tests and collected 707 DNA samples. Upon verification of parenthood, following positive mother-child DNA matches, it has processed birth certificates to facilitate the immediate repatriation of the children and their mothers. Through the lobbying of the Kenya government, a joint interdepartmental working group formed in January 2025, comprising the Kenya Embassy, Saudi Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Labor and Interior, and the Saudi General Directorate of Passports, helped in the provision of emergency travel documents for both mother and child. Since its inception, the deliberate efforts have resulted in the safe repatriation of 59 mothers and 73 children back to Kenya. The Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, cognizant of the rising unemployment among the youth, has signed off various bilateral labor agreements that has resulted in the employment of over 430 Kenyans abroad since 2023. We are being very careful here. Mark the dates, because we don't want a story going out there saying that they say they have employed 430 in 1 year. We are being very, very specific, since 2023. So this is a cumulative figure. As well as access to thousands of digital jobs through the Ajira ecosystem. According to the Central Bank of Kenya, Kenyans abroad sent home 651.7 billion Kenya shillings in 2024, marking an 18% increase of 98.4 billion compared to 543.3 billion received in 2023, which is a significant contribution to the economy. From the meeting that I've just come from at the Kenya School of Government, this figure has actually now hit $1 trillion. Kenyans in the diaspora have, as at November 2025, now remitted, hit the 1 trillion mark. That is a very, very significant amount of money, which is critical to helping keep our currency strong.
Our compatriots, Oyo and Jagi, were apprehended by the military police of the Republic of Uganda. To the best of our knowledge, they have been returned, and they are certainly in good health. It is my belief that President Museveni was speaking metaphorically, rather than to suggest that there was anything that was done in the manner in which he described it. And therefore, until and unless we are able to get further information with respect to their treatment, at this point in time, I think we can say that we are very pleased that our compatriots are back. It took a long time for them to return, by virtue of the fact that they were being held not by the police but by the military intelligence of the Republic of Uganda, on the basis of their own law of subversion. And therefore, it became challenging for us to be able to engage within the shortest time possible, but we did our best, and we are very happy that they're back with us.